All right. I am here with Zoe Kalar, and she is the founder and CEO at We Are 8. How's it going, Zoe?
Great, Steve. Brilliant to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into your multiple successes. I want to start with what your background is. Like, how did you get into business?
Do you know by accident, actually? Well, I was 21 when I started my first business. I really didn't know what I was doing. I broke my leg actually and moved back in with my parents. And I had an old client from Nestle say, you've got to do this. And so I started my first company that I had for 10 years and I sold to Omnicom sort of 10 years later. But I think so many of the best things start from unexpected, even negative things sometimes when you're thinking, this is all completely shit and things turn out, there's always a silver lining, but it's never a straight line, right? The path to exit for me, 4 companies over 35 years, it's never a straight line, ever. And back, 35 years ago, there was no VC infrastructure. There were no sort of funding infrastructures. If you had big ideas, you had to sort of bootstrap it back in those days. So, started really not knowing what I was doing at all, but seeing big problems. I've always been obsessed with really big problems and working out how things can be better. And I think if you start from that premise, any good founder really starts from that premise anyway. I mean, you do not go on this path because really to be an entrepreneur, to be a founder, you have to be slightly insane anyway, particularly as a female founder because the odds are against you. The stats are against you. 2% of all founders get money from VCs, or 2% of VC funding goes to female founders. So you have to be slightly insane. So the exit piece has to be aside, and you just have to think about how you solve a big problem, build something better than what exists, and just commit to it through life, death, every up, down, corner, everything.
Yeah, yeah. So there's multiple sort of successful exits to talk about here, but I kind of want to keep it as broad as we can just for the people listening in terms of advice. So the multiple that you saw,
I'll try my best, Steve.
we can take some knowledge across the board for multiple kind of transactions here. So let's start with getting prepared and tracking. I think that that's something that a lot of people get tripped up on. And I know every business is different, of course, every industry is different. But what were some similarities and things that you were tracking across the board when you were operating these different businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the first business, I was 26 years old and I was just focused, and we'd sort of building a lot of tech and solutions and infrastructure around 96. Around that, we were working with a lot of the Olympic sponsors and other things. So it was a really big time in technology. But I didn't have the capital to always build the platforms that I wanted. So we'd build things around it, right, with brand funding. So in selling the first company, it was really because we were doing really well as a company. We won a lot of business against American companies. This was based out of Australia and Asia Pacific. It was really people came to us, and three big groups happened to come to us at the one time. And so I ended up negotiating with them and doing a deal in 97 with a 3-year earnout. I mean, in retrospect, in that company, and look, I did what I did. I was, 26 years old, 27 years old. But I think in retrospect, I would have been more strategic about it. I sort of, the business is doing well, core business is doing well. You get people approach you and you think, oh, this is a good time to exit. It all looks shiny and bright out there. But actually the thing that I learned there was earnouts are painful. If you think there's any second amount of money coming, there's all sorts of mechanisms that people can use to take money out of the profit line in the company. And the thing that I struggled with most, I mean, I had 100 people in that company. I was 27 years old, and they put 2 people on my board. The youngest was 65. So there was this really a chasm of generational sort of understanding of the business, understanding of a founder mentality who wants to innovate and drive and fuel, and which is critical, but most critically at the core of everything, not just the generational gap and the founder understanding, but it was that the values of the 2 parties weren't aligned. And before any conversation, because look, I understand the shareholder mindset. I don't just want to sell something and it's off my plate. I care deeply about the companies that we build, and I want it to be successful for them. So I really believe in everyone getting a good deal. But if the values aren't aligned, then that makes it really tough. And, particularly in an earnout scenario where I got 70% and then 30% was on an earnout. And that can make it excruciatingly painful. When you're used to, driving hard, moving fast, getting stuff done, and all of a sudden you're in a corporate, heavy, slow, old mindset infrastructure, and you just want to smash out of that prison. I mean, I remember, and look, this is in 97. I remember sitting in a board meeting, and one of these old guys literally took my board papers and tore them up. And mind you, we won all this Olympic business. We were having a great, it was successful. He tore them up into tiny little bits. So it was just this, it was a different time, right? But it was a very, the sort of older purchaser, we're going to control you mindset is very damaging to a founder's psyche.
Yeah.
So look, it was a successful exit financially. It was a painful 3 years. The second company, I had, I think, getting B-class shares, and, I learnt the hard way in a lot of these things. I think a lot of people, there's a great clip from, I forget his name, from Sun Microsystems. He says 90% of all investors are not equipped to be guiding an entrepreneurial founder, and 70% of investors add negative value. Because unless you've been on the bleeding edge of growing a business fast, breaking things fast, refining, changing, unless you've done that and been up against it, you don't understand the mindset. And any founder that really, really cares deeply about the business that they've built wants to see it thrive. That is important. I mean, for sure, there are founders or business owners that want to sell and they don't give a crap. They just want to have a really good exit and move on. That's not me. Unfortunately, for good or bad, Steve, I care too much. So, I care about the people, the employees. I care about the business that I've built because it's always been transformational. My third business, the data company that I built in the US. So that business, we built data infrastructure inside all the media agencies and that's when I was living in New York for 12 years. That business, it really became the backbone for media trading in the US. I had built that, it was profitable, it was doing really well. And to me, that was when I saw actually Meta take this year it'll be $200 billion out of the market when everything else was imploding. And I wanted to fix that. You know, I'd built this company to profitability and health, and I wanted to build that. I had a really good exit there. I was on the board. I'd started to build We Are 8. I had a really good exit there. And what I loved about that exit was strategically they had a great vision. So aligned values, aligned strategic vision, the idea that they were going to take your business and then turn it into something even greater is the perfect scenario, really. You want it to become, it's like a child. You know, you birth it, you support it and grow it, but then it becomes a teenager, an adult. You want it to keep building and flying. So in my mind, the best partner, the best exit investor, purchaser has aligned values. They have a great vision for where they want to take it, and they value the path that you've been on. So it's this, you know, still with SMI, there's an exchange with GTCR who bought it.
Nice. Very nice. I think that's such great wisdom on the first exit of just the age gap. I mean, that's a massive difference in all different values and everything. So I really like that example. Let's shift to timing, because you have multiple different exits that we're talking about here. Why was it the right time to exit for each one?
Yeah. Do you know, it's funny, Steve? I think the time actually picks you sometimes, because, you know, there are no shortcuts. You're working 14 hours a day. It's not a straight line. Mm-hmm. I mean, the first one, as I said, we had 3 companies come into us. The second one, I was living in Shanghai in China, and I mean, we brought the first musical into China with Lloyd Webber. We did really transformational, we did the TV rights deals for the 2002-2006 Football World Cup. We did all sorts of amazing things, but on a personal level, after 3.5 years, China was tough, you know, and I'd learned so much. I realized, because when I did the deal, I really wanted capital partners to invest to buy rights to things. And as it turns out, they didn't put the money in that they committed that they would. I had 25% of the company. I'd had 100% of my first company, bootstrapped it, owned it 100% till the end. The second company, I only had 25% stake. And as it turns out, they were B-class shares. So when you're a founder and you're building something great, you can see an exit, you can see a path. And we had a really big offer at the time from IMG. We were taking, you know, we were taking their business, we were taking their TV rights business, we were building transformational tech. It was an exciting time in China. They were leapfrogging landline and going straight to mobile. It was accelerating fast. All these products and things, and entertainment was really exploding. And what was really challenging is we had a very big offer from IMG at the time, and they told me to say no. And that was, I realized I wasn't in control of my own destiny. It wasn't that much later that SARS then hit in China. And I realized I didn't think we were going to get a better or bigger offer. at the time. And so being in control of your own destiny and making sure you have good board members, that you really have great lawyers, that you have great bankers and accountants and everyone around you. And I think, look, transparently, after being beaten down for 3 years with some old board members in my earlier company, I think even though I was really driven in building a great company, I think I questioned myself too much. And so in the end, they bought me out for about a tenth of what the IMG deal was. So that was my second company. And then the third was a bank. We did a full process. We had bankers, advisors, and as it turns out, there are some coincidental things that happened that meant it was a partner we knew, and we just loved their values and their vision for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great exit.
How about negotiations wise? I mean, I think when we talk about valuation and how to extrapolate that, it sounds like the first one was really inbound driven. The next one was kind of that B-class shares scenario where you got bought out. And the third sounds like it was the sort of culmination of the learnings of those previous two coming together. And I'm just curious how negotiations worked out when you ran that process with the bankers and everybody involved on that third one.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I mean, there's always, really good numbers, like having a really good, solid business, key, and that's just a very straightforward process. But the profitability numbers are one thing, and the multiples on that. The real value gets added when you start to talk about collective visions, because that's where they can see, with this capital, this is how, 2 turns into 10, whatever, or 50 turns into, 500 or whatever it is, right? So I think it's, look, it was a very disciplined process. We had really good lawyers and accountants, but everything really comes back to, I think, the best exits are when there's respect between the parties and a collective shared vision that, again, is respected, and you're collectively working out. When I sold the World Cup TV rights in China, what was interesting is media in China is a monopoly, and they weren't going to pay anything really for the rights. And what was interesting, what hadn't been worked through with them, is how you buy an asset for $10 million and turn it into $100 million or $200 million. And I think that's the thing with every sale. You actually look at how you can collectively help them get value out the other side. Mm-hmm. And they're the best exits. So look, it's having a great team. I'm sorry. Is there background noise for you?
It's okay. I think you're all good.
How's that?
That's better.
Yeah. Sorry. So I think I think the data space was really exciting at the time. Their vision for media planning, buying, was really brilliant, and it's respect. At the end of the day, I think. Look, I think a founder, a good founder, wants a great exit for your shareholders and you, and we did with that company. But you want the company to go on and flourish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would have, and it was interesting just the scope of the offers that were coming in that business. You could see that some people just wanted to buy the numbers in the business and tack it on to what they were doing, and some people wanted to buy the numbers and the what was possible if they combined our data with this, or they wanted to build it into something.
Yeah, and that's always the dream scenario for everybody listening, that you have your financial buyers and your strategic buyers, and going after the strategic angle of pitching what Zoe was mentioning of the future, like painting the picture for what it would do for their business. And a lot of times I've heard and talked to so many different founders about this, is almost setting benchmarks based on your history to project out when you're doing a transaction like this, of saying, I put projections together 2 years ago. I hit the goal last year. I hit it again this year. And this is what it's going to look like next year for you when we add X, Y, Z. And there's so many good, cool tactics to use in pitching strategic versus just like a P&L kind of digging into those numbers so intricately. And a lot of times it ends up that way, and it's not the best situation for founders at all.
Right. And it's interesting because in retrospect, I think the best outcomes are when you're not even looking to sell, when you're not even looking to exit. It's all, I've become now really alert to partners that we want on the business with us the whole way through. You know, you want to involve people in the process and the exciting journey of growth, and then they become potential partners for exit. But you're not looking at it with that agenda. You're not looking at, we want to sell to you. We want you to be part of this on the journey, and particularly with what we've built now at We Are 8. I mean, we solve really big problems for publishers, for brands, for the biggest media companies in the world, for people at scale, transparently. And that's why I think with what we've built now, you know, ultimately it could be a strategic exit, you know, to someone like Microsoft or Oracle or any of those sort of groups. It could be a consortium of the biggest brands in the world, the biggest advertisers in the world that create a consortium. It could be any one of the biggest media companies. But for us and where we sit now, or it could be a listing, an IPO, which I really, or it could be a mix of those things, actually, which is also very exciting to me. The biggest thing for me is actually bringing all those groups and all those stakeholders on the journey and realizing, you know, what do they say? It's really not about the exit. It really is about the journey. And all the value is created in the journey. So taking those partners with you along the way. I remember when I sold my first company, I thought I would feel so excited. And you're so exhausted by the time the deal is done. I remember I just went to bed for about 48 hours. I did it, and then it was the next day. But I tell you what was amazing, when 100 of us were at the Olympic opening ceremony at the Sydney Olympics. That was amazing. When when we sold SMI, I was in at 6:30 in the morning. You know, because I think it's really not about the exit. It's great to get a lot of money in your bank account. That part of it is good because it brings freedom. But from where I sit, it just means, great, I can fuel and fund what I want to build now. It gave me the freedom to not be reliant on VC money. I mean, I put $15 million into building We Are 8 and the future, and it's something that's really critical for people and publishers and everyone at this time in the world.
Yeah, and I think you touched on so many great points throughout there, and I really wanted to kind of hone in on the kind of cliche statement around the journey is what it's all about. And I think until you go through the exit and passing your company on, you really understand that it's so true that the journey is the important part and the fun part. And it takes that retroactive, like you have to look back and say like, okay, well, now, what do I do next? Like you feel so displaced after doing all of that. You like summited the mountain, and then the mountain kind of disappears, and you got to figure out what mountain to do next. So it is such a valid statement that the journey is where it is, and I think so many people lose track of it.
Right.
When they're
Because
in
you
the mix.
you never feel like you think you do. And you get up the top of the mountain and you realize it's all about the team and the people that you've done this with. Because I tell you what, when you're both in the trenches, crossing the Sahara, climbing the mountain, whatever it is when you're in the trenches, the people that stand with you in the trenches, it's your team, it's your partners, those that say, we've got you, we're with you. It's those people that make it all great.
Agreed.
And it's all about that, actually, and what we learn. And and all the things we didn't learn, so they smash us in the face again until we learn them. And I really, I think I was, when I was 27, I've also learned to let go of outcome. My job as a business is to drive the best outcome for shareholders, but as a platform at 8, it is to protect the hundreds of millions of people that are making this their home. So it's actually, it's dual, but you want to do that in a way that has integrity, as well. And which is really important. I mean, it's really, and this is why people's values matter, because and the shareholders that you let in, the investors that let you in. I mean, there'll be points along the road that you'll always get a lot of shit. Like you can't, and just surrendering. In my first business, I took that really personally. And even when I sold, I just cared so much about the team and the people and the business. I struggled to sort of let it go, which is then why I moved to China and built the second thing. But then I realized you can love and support the team, the business, but you have to let it go. And it's doing everyone a disservice. They want you to let it go. And then they want to see, you want to see them do amazing things, and they want to see you do that. So I think, it's just been 35 years of learning, Steve, basically. But I really know investors that I want and investors that I don't want.
That's important.
And
Very important.
right.
So that takes us to the finale. It's a great segue into knowing what you know now. What would you tell Zoe 10 years ago?
I think, the idea that and it's funny because many years ago I was on a Holly Tucker podcast, and I wrote a letter to my 18-year-old self, my 20-year-old self, my 38-year-old self, my 48-year-old self. And I would tell my 18-year-old self to be brave. And when people tell you things that they'll do for you and say, just sign the deal and we'll do that later, don't ever listen to that. Unfortunately, I think we live in a world where trust is eroded. I still trust, by the way, Steve. I still trust, but you have to be really zipped up on that front. So learn to speak in financial, learn to really read a spreadsheet, a balance sheet, all the financials of the business, and be really, really zipped up on it on every level. Burn rate, all the questions, you've got to be sharp. And we've got some amazing investors, some, CEOs of some of the personal investors that have invested in SMI and 8 and really backed me. They've been brilliant because they've coached me on just being so sharp on all the finances. I think the other thing is often as a female founder, you want to smash the myth. I mean, I don't look like I can speak the language of technology, for example, but I can. I mean, we've just spent the last 3.5 years building an AI engine that has learnt to protect humanity and will block all the toxicity from social. It's so fucking exciting. But smashing the myth, because you've got a millisecond to change that perception, but at the same time, be yourself. If you've got a big vision and you're bringing it home, you're going to do it. And I get lots of advice and lots of unrequested advice, but it's actually learning to just filter, brush that stuff off. When people say it can't be done or you're going to fail, or that's very ambitious. Okay, get off the field because I'm on it and we're going to bring this home and we're going to actually take that $200 billion that Zuckerberg's getting and we're going to pump it back to the people, charities, planet projects, and we're going to make 40%. Everyone's going to win in our world. So I think be brave, family and working like like this can coexist. Get rid of the guilt, get rid of, particularly as a woman, you can hold it all together somehow and not hold it all together, so it can coexist. And if you feel like you're living on the razor's edge, just learn to dance there. Because the reality is everyone is feeling like they're living on the razor's edge. Mm-hmm. Whether you're a founder and you've got to pay 100 people next month and you don't know how you're going to meet payroll, or whether you're, a 17-year-old teenager that's trying to navigate the future. Mm-hmm. Everyone is living on the edge. And just dig deep and know you're going to bring it home, and back yourself and believe in yourself even when others don't. I just say keep going. Keep going, little Zoe. Keep going. That's what I would have told you. I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to keep walking in when we feel exhausted and when we're sitting on the shower floor thinking we can't go on, we're going to keep going.
Well said. Well said. So tell us briefly about what is We Are 8 and where can people learn more about it?
weare8.com, or just download the We Are 8 app and join our community. Really quickly, we've addressed the big things in social that had to be addressed. Safety, so there's no toxic content. You can't be abusive on every video, image, comment, everything. Second thing is we've eliminated the algorithms so they don't restrict who sees us. People see about 5% of our posts. Those algorithms control everything, and they also don't let you link off to the web. They just keep us on their super highways of death, literally. So we've addressed safety, the algorithms, and we've transformed the economic model. So it's, if you imagine TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter had a love baby with a conscience, it's really that. And we've got the biggest publishers in the world, amazing artists, actors, musicians. We're at the moment rallying 80 million mums around the world to stand united. And actually 80 million voices of youth, because we want our kids to have a safe place, to not just be safe, but be infinitely... It's where there's positivity and infinite possibility. And so it's social of the future. Finally, there's a safe home without all the crap that everyone is awake to now. 5 years ago, I was talking about the problem. Now everyone knows the problem, kids are dying and we're unsafe, and those algorithms keep us scrolling so they can make more money. We've changed that. We've taken the ads out of the feed. So if you feel like watching an ad, you can choose to watch an ad and the money is shared with you in your central wallet. So you can then use that to pay your mobile bill, your Spotify, your Netflix. The money comes, our mission is to get $1 a day into the wallets of 800 million people on the planet and actually keep us all safe. So it's the radical evolution of social, built to ignite the world and bring us all together and make amazing shit happen out the other side. How's this, Steve? To leave you with a stat, when just 1% of humanity, 80 million people, come together on 8, the energy of that, and each of those people choosing to watch 2 minutes of ads a day, they will get paid, money goes to charity, but just 1% of humanity doing that for 2 minutes a day, we will collectively be pumping more money from advertisers back to people, charities, and planet projects than the Gates Foundation in 1 year. Like, it's people power at it's reimagined social with people power, where we can all just feel loved and valued and purposeful and inspired again.
Beautiful. Well, wherever you guys are listening on iTunes or Spotify, the links that Zoe mentioned will be in the show notes. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your wisdom.
I don't know if it's wisdom, but for what it's worth, I loved chatting with you, Steve. Thank you for having me.